Hello everyone, I hope everything is going well. Thanks for wait for me to upload in the messy GC. I hope everyone enjoys what I have to offer. I also want to thank everyone for 4K and I hope you guys enjoy this video.
But I'm diving in that pussy. Kill that pussy like I'm dressed in all black. I ain't hit this shit raw, gotta keep my shit wrapped. Touch your toes and me hit it from the back. She a skinny hoe, but she made that eye clap. Drop it low, fuck a bed, we can get it on the floor. I got 3 hoes and I'm trying to.
Oh yeah, cause he fuckboy Kaa, Aaron and AKAASHI. Wait the fuck? When did AKAASHI came into this? It's because if the whole group hoeing around it's guaranteed that AKAASHI is also. No he's not. Oh god, I'm fucking sick of this. BOKUTO, I've been cheating on with Kuru and Kenma. AKAASHI, what do you mean? Come on AKAASHI, you don't mean that. I do both. It's over. I don't want you anymore. You can't say that. Well I'm telling you. No AKAASHI, stop. I'm coming over. BOKUTO, do not come over. BOKUTO went offline. I've been cheating on you, with Kuru. BOKUTO read the words over and over, his mind refusing to process them. His hands trembled as he held his phone, the screen's glow burning into his eyes. The group chat was still active, the other messages pouring in like white noise. He could see the shock, the awkward attempts at sympathy, the lingering silence that followed, but none of it mattered. AKAASHI had sent that message, to everyone, including him. His chest tightened so painfully he thought he might suffocate. He struggled to breathe, his fingers gripping the steering wheel of his parked car so hard they ached. His stomach twisted violently, nausea rising, but he couldn't move. Kuru, his best friend, the person he trusted most. AKAASHI, his lover, the one he thought would never hurt him. BOKUTO blinked rapidly, his vision blurring, throat burning with the weight of everything crashing down at once. His mind was screaming, telling him to turn around, to go home, to not see it for himself. But his heart was louder. He needed to know, needed to see AKAASHI's face when he said it, needed to hear him tell the truth with his own lips. BOKUTO's hands were shaking as he gripped the wheel, his knuckles turning white, his vision blurred with unshed tears. The words in the group chat burned into his brain like a brand. I've been cheating on you, with Kuru. What the actual fuck? AKAASHI's message had shattered something inside him, something irreparable. His best friend, his lover, the two people he trusted most had ripped him apart. But he wasn't going to accept it, because there's absolutely no way his best friend and his soon-to-be fiancé would do this to him. Before he could stop himself, he turned the key in the ignition. The drive to AKAASHI's house felt like a fever dream, like he wasn't even controlling his own body anymore. The world outside the window blurred past him, headlights streaking like ghostly trails. His heart pounded against his ribs, uneven and erratic. By the time he reached AKAASHI's house, his hands were numb from gripping the wheel too tightly. The lights inside were on, a soft glow spilling through the living room window. The sight of it sent an ache so deep into his chest it felt like something had been physically torn away. He didn't move right away, just sat there, staring at the house that once felt like home. The place where he and AKAASHI had spent so many nights tangled together, whispering about the future, making promises that now felt like lies. His throat tightened as he slowly stepped out of the car, every breath shaky and uneven. His feet felt like lead as he walked toward the window, drawn to it like a man walking toward his own grave. When he arrived at AKAASHI's place, the house was warmly lit, shadows flickering against the curtains. BOKUTO's breath hitched when he stepped. And then he saw them. AKAASHI and Kuru sat together on the couch, their bodies impossibly close. Kuru's arm was draped around AKAASHI's waist, fingers tracing lazy patterns against his hip. AKAASHI leaned into him, his expression soft, content. They weren't just sitting together, they were watching a movie, together, like they had done this 1,000 times before, like this was normal. BOKUTO's stomach dropped, his breath catching in his throat. But what truly shattered him, what drove the knife deep into his ribs, was the way AKAASHI looked at Kuru, like he was the only person in the world. BOKUTO had seen that look before, had lived for that look, had fought for that look, but it had never been for him. A choked sound escaped his lips, but it barely registered. His body was screaming, begging him to run, to leave before he crumbled completely, but he couldn't. Instead, his hand clenched around something cold in his pocket, the spare key, the one AKAASHI had given him when they were still in love. His breath came in sharp, uneven bursts as he stepped forward, his fingers trembling as he slid the key into the lock. It clicked softly, a cruelly familiar sound. The door creaked open, the warmth from inside brushing against his frozen skin. AKAASHI and Kuru turned at the sound. For a moment, there was silence. AKAASHI blinked, as if surprised, as if BOKUTO wasn't supposed to be there, as if he was the intruder in his own story. BOKUTO. AKAASHI's voice was calm, cold. BOKUTO's breath hitched. Kiji. His voice cracked, barely a whisper. His eyes darted between them, to the space between their bodies, to the lack of space. Tell me this isn't real. Tell me that you're joking. Please tell me that I am the one you love and not him. Akashi, please. Akashi sighed, standing up. Kyoru followed, his posture shifting, subtly protective. I told you already. Akashi's face was unreadable. I don't love you anymore. Bokuto staggered forward like he'd been physically struck. His breath came in sharp gasps, his vision swimming. No, you do. You still love me. Akashi, I know I can be overbearing sometimes and too much, but I promise I'll let you have time to yourself. I won't be clingy anymore. His voice was raw, desperate. I don't care, Keiji. I don't care if you're with him. Just don't leave me, please. Akashi exhaled slowly. Bokuto, stop. Where's your self-respect? Do you not love yourself? Akashi, I just want you to stay with me. I need you. I can share. Bokuto choked out, his entire body trembling. I don't care if you cheat. Just stay with me. I'll do anything. Just don't throw me away. Akashi's lips pressed into a thin line. His next words were quiet but sharp enough to cut. This is why I left you. Bokuto froze. You're pathetic, Akashi said, and there was no emotion behind it. Just cold truth. Look at yourself. Begging? Groveling? It's pathetic. Bokuto's knees hit the floor. His hands clutched at Akashi's leg, his forehead pressing against it as sobs tore from his throat. Please, he whispered, his voice barely more than a breath. Keiji, please. I'll take all the insults and I follow your instructions. Kyoru stepped forward, his expression unreadable. Hey bro, I'm sorry but you have to let him go. You can't do this to yourself. Get up. Bokuto didn't move. Kyoru grabbed his arm, trying to pull him away, and that was it. That was the breaking point. Bokuto snapped. His hands shot out, shoving Kyoru back with enough force to make him stumble. Kyoru barely had time to react before Bokuto lunged, his fist connecting with his jaw in a sickening crunch. Kyoru staggered but recovered quickly, shoving Bokuto back just as hard. What the hell is wrong with you? You took him from me. That's fucked up, bro. You've known how much I wanted this, how much I wanted him, and how much I've longed for him, and then you just take it all away. What about Kenma? Bokuto snarled, his voice barely human. His hands were shaking, rage boiling over, drowning everything else. You had Kenma. Why did you go for my Akashi? You knew that I was going to marry him. You knew about the proposal. You even helped me plan it. Kyoru's eyes darkened. He was never yours to keep. Bokuto's world blurred red. He tackled Kyoru, sending them both crashing into the coffee table, glass shattering beneath them. Fists flew, wild and desperate, knuckles splitting skin, blood smearing across the floor. Bokuto didn't care. He just wanted it to hurt, wanted both of them to feel even an ounce of what they had done to him. Akashi's voice rang out in the background, distant, meaningless. Stop it, both of you, stop. But Bokuto didn't stop, couldn't stop, because nothing he did would ever be enough to fill the gaping, hollow wound in his chest. And deep down, he knew, no matter how much he fought, no matter how much he begged, Akashi was never coming back. Bokuto's vision blurred as Kyoru's fist slammed into his ribs, knocking the breath from his lungs. Pain exploded through his side, but he barely registered it. His world was already in ruins. What was one more broken piece? He didn't hesitate, didn't think. With a guttural roar, he surged forward, tackling Kyoru with the force of something desperate, something feral. They crashed against the coffee table, the glass shattering beneath them. Split exhaustion. From rage, splinters tore into their skin, but neither of them stopped. Kyoru snarled, grabbing Bokuto by the collar and slamming him onto the ground. The impact rattled his skull, black spots dancing in his vision, but he didn't care. Bokuto's elbow jerked up, smashing into Kyoru's jaw with a sickening crack. Kyoru cursed, stumbling back, but Bokuto wasn't done. Not even close. He lunged, his fists swinging wildly, connecting with flesh, with bone. He wanted him to hurt, wanted him to bleed. Kyoru fought back just as hard. His knee drove into Bokuto's stomach, forcing a strangled gasp from his throat. But Bokuto didn't stop, couldn't stop. His fingers clawed at Kyoru's face, his nails digging into the skin, desperate to tear, to ruin. Blood smeared across his knuckles as he swung again, his body trembling from exhaustion, from rage. Kyoru's fist met his cheek, snapping his head to the side. Blood dripped from his mouth, the coppery taste filling his senses. He barely had time to recover before Kyoru's hands were around his throat, squeezing. Bokuto's breath hitched, his hands shot up, fingers clawing at Kyoru's grit, but Kyoru was stronger. He had always been stronger. His vision blurred at the edges, his lungs burning. The room spun, the sound of their ragged breathing and the distant hum of the TV the only things left. And through it all, Akashi didn't move. He just sat there, watching them destroy each other, Something inside BOKUTO snapped again, deeper this time, like something had caved in. His fingers found Kyoru's wrist, gripping it hard before twisting. Kyoru let out a sharp grunt of pain, and BOKUTO took his chance. He surged upward, slamming Kyoru down onto the broken table. His hands gripped his shirt, shaking, his breath ragged. Kyoru glared up at him, blood dripping from his split lip, his chest rising and falling in uneven gasps. BOKUTO panted, his fists trembling, his entire body burned, but Kyoru still had that look, that same fucking look, the one that said he had already won. BOKUTO's chest caved in, his grip loosened, his entire body sagged under the weight of something too heavy to hold anymore. He had lost everything, and AKAASHI still hadn't said a word. The front door slammed open so hard it nearly came off its hinges. Kenma stormed inside, his breath ragged, his face twisted in something between rage and panic. His eyes darted between BOKUTO and Kyoru, both of them barely standing, covered in blood. Their faces were swollen, bruises already forming along their jaws, their bodies wrecked from the sheer brutality of their fight. And AKAASHI had just stood there. Kenma's gaze snapped to him, something burning in his chest, something he couldn't keep in anymore. "What the fuck is wrong with you?" His voice cracked through the room like a whip. AKAASHI blinked, slow, detached, like he wasn't even part of the carnage surrounding him. Kenma pushed forward, grabbing BOKUTO by the arm, trying to pry him off Kyoru. BOKUTO barely resisted. He was shaking now, his breath ragged, his fingers twitching like they didn't know how to let go. His eyes were empty, his chest heaving, his bloodied hands still clenched into fists. "BOKUTO," Kenma muttered, his voice urgent but soft, pleading, "let go, it's over." BOKUTO didn't move, didn't even seem to hear him. His head was down, his body swaying like he was on the edge of breaking. Kenma turned to AKAASHI, rage curling in his throat. "You just fucking stood there." His voice was sharp, cutting, but AKAASHI didn't even flinch. Kenma's hands curled into fists. "You watched them beat the shit out of each other and did nothing. What the fuck is wrong with you?" AKAASHI's face remained unreadable, his arms crossed over his chest, unbothered, and then he scoffed. Kenma's blood boiled. "You don't get to act like you care now," AKAASHI said coldly, his eyes, sharp, locked onto Kenma with something close to disgust. "You're not fucking innocent." Kenma's breath hitched. AKAASHI took a step forward, his tone turning sharp, cutting like a knife. "You want to stand here and act like you're better? Like you actually give a shit about BOKUTO?" His voice rose, laced with venom. "You're just as fucking guilty. You knew what Kyoru and I were doing, and you didn't say shit because you were doing the same thing behind his back, and you were also a part of it." The room fell into a suffocating silence. BOKUTO finally lifted his head, his eyes unfocused, his breath coming in uneven gasps. Kenma froze, his lips parted, but nothing came out, because AKAASHI was right, and now, BOKUTO knew. A hollow, broken laugh spilled from BOKUTO's lips, but there was no humor in it. He pushed himself to his feet, swaying slightly, his body screaming in protest. His head throbbed, his face was burning, but none of it compared to the ache in his chest. His gaze swept over them, AKAASHI, Kyoru, Kenma, his best friends, his world, and now, nothing. "Fuck," he muttered, dragging a hand down his face. A shaky, bitter laugh followed. "I'm so fucking stupid." No one said anything. BOKUTO exhaled sharply, his hands still trembling. He looked at Kyoru, at Kenma, both of them stained in his blood, but he was the one who had lost everything. He turned to AKAASHI last. His throat was tight, his body was weak, but he still managed to whisper, "Did you ever love me?" AKAASHI didn't answer, and that silence hurt more than any of Kyoru's punches. BOKUTO nodded once, slow, then he turned around and walked out the door, and no one stopped him. BOKUTO didn't know how he made it out the door. His legs felt numb, his body barely functioning, like he was moving on instinct alone. His ears were ringing, blood dripping down his chin, soaking into his torn shirt. The world outside was cold, but it didn't register, not over the storm raging inside of him. He staggered down the front steps, his breath shallow and ragged, every part of him broken. Behind him, the chaos continued. "Shit, BOKUTO, hold on." Kenma's voice rang out, sharp with panic, but BOKUTO didn't stop, didn't turn around, didn't want to see them anymore. "Let him go." AKAASHI's voice cut through the air, cold, final. BOKUTO's steps faltered for half a second, then he kept walking. Kenma, for once, didn't listen. He turned to AKAASHI, furious. "Why, and how?" Kenma snapped, his voice raw, breaking at the edges. "How can you just let him walk away like that? After everything?" AKAASHI's gaze remained unreadable, detached. "Because it's over." Kenma let out a bitter laugh, shaking his head. "You're fucking unbelievable." He turned to Kyoru then, his lover, his partner in crime, the one person he thought he could trust, and his stomach churned. Kyoru was wrecked. His face was swollen, his lips split, blood still dripping from the cuts on his cheek. But he wasn't looking at Kenma, he was looking at Akashi. Like nothing else in the room mattered. Kenma's fingers curled into fists. So that's it. His voice trembled, something ugly and raw rising in his chest. You two get what you want, and now he's just supposed to disappear. Kiryu, what about us? Kiryu looks down, avoiding eye contact with Kenma. Akashi's lips pressed into a thin line. He should have left a long time ago. Kenma snapped. Fuck you, Akashi. His voice cracked, rage and guilt and something else tearing through him all at once. And fuck you too, Kiryu. You were his best friend, his fucking family. His vision blurred as he shook his head, his breath uneven. You were also mine, but I can't act like I didn't have any fault to this, because I went behind his back too and did some foul shit. But this is way too far. Kiryu's jaw clenched, but he said nothing, because there was nothing left to say. Kenma's hands shook as he shoved past them, bolting out the door, his heart pounding against his ribs. But by the time he made it outside, BOKUTO was already gone. BOKUTO barely remembered driving home. His hands gripped the steering wheel so tightly his knuckles turned white, but he couldn't feel them, couldn't feel anything except the dull, aching weight pressing against his chest. His body was still screaming from the fight, his face throbbed, his ribs burned with every breath, and blood had dried in cracks along his skin, but none of it compared to the pain inside. The silence in the car was suffocating, the ringing in his ears hadn't stopped. He could still hear the fight in his head, every punch, every snarl, every word that had torn through him like a blade. You already lost. He should have left a long time ago. His fingers twitched on the wheel, his vision blurred for a second, but he blinked rapidly, forcing himself to focus on the road. He just had to get home, had to be somewhere else. By the time he parked, his entire body felt hollow. The apartment was dark when he stepped inside, the door clicking shut behind him, the weight of the night settling onto his shoulders like a crushing force. He stood there for a long moment, staring into the emptiness, his breath shaky. Akashi's things weren't here anymore. The bookshelf was missing his favorite novels, the blanket he always curled up with was gone, and the absence of his presence felt like a gaping wound. BOKUTO stumbled forward, his legs weak, his stomach twisting violently. He barely made it to the couch before he collapsed onto it, his body curling inward. His breathing was uneven, shallow, like he was crumbling from the inside out. Then, before he even realized what he was doing, his shaking hands reached for his phone. He pressed Akashi's name. The phone rang, once, twice, 5 times. Voicemail. BOKUTO swallowed thickly, his fingers trembling as he pressed call again. Ring, ring, ring. Nothing. His breathing hitched. He hung up, immediately pressed the call button again. Ring, ring, voicemail. His chest caved in. BOKUTO exhaled sharply, running a shaky hand through his hair, gripping at the strands like he could hold himself together that way. His vision blurred, throat tightening as he pressed the call button again, and again, and again. Nothing. Akashi wasn't answering. Akashi wasn't going to answer. BOKUTO let out a shaky breath, his body trembling, his hands clenched around the phone so tightly his knuckles ached. He pressed the call button one more time, pressing the speaker to his ear, begging, please, he whispered, voice cracking. KG, please just pick up, please. But the ringing continued. His heart pounded, something thick and suffocating crawling up his throat. The voicemail beep sounded, and suddenly, words were spilling out of him, raw and broken. Akashi, fuck, I know you don't wanna hear me right now, but please. His voice trembled, his breath hitching. I don't care about what happened, I don't care about anything, I just talk to me, please. Silence. He sniffled, running a hand over his face, pressing his palm into his eyes like it would stop the burning. I don't know how to do this without you, he admitted, his voice barely above a whisper. I don't. His throat closed up, his entire body curling in on itself. I don't know how to exist if you're not here. His breathing hitched. I'll do anything, he whispered. I don't care. Just let me stay. Even if you don't love me anymore. The call cut off. BOKUTO stared at his screen, his heart thudding painfully. Call failed. The words blurred as his vision swam, the weight in his chest growing heavier, heavier, heavier. With a ragged breath, he tried again. Blocked. His breath left him in a sharp, shattered sound. His phone slipped from his fingers, hitting the floor with a dull thud. The silence that followed was unbearable. BOKUTO felt his body go numb, felt the walls closing in. His hands dug into his hair, his nails scraping against his scalp as his entire body shook. His chest felt too tight, his breath too shallow, like he was trapped under something crushing, suffocating. He had nothing left. No Akashi, no Kiryu, no Kenma. He had lost everything. A strangled sob tore from his throat before he could stop it. He curled in on himself, pressing his forehead to his knees, his entire body trembling. And in the dark, in the silence, BOKUTO finally broke. Kenma didn't know why he came. Maybe it was guilt. Maybe it was regret. Maybe it was the way BOKUTO had looked at him before he left, the way his shoulders had caved in, the way his voice had cracked when he realized how deep the betrayal ran. Maybe it was because, despite everything, BOKUTO was still his best friend, or at least, he used to be. Kenma hesitated outside the apartment door, his fingers twitching at his sides. It was late. He knew BOKUTO was home, his car was parked outside, the lights inside faintly glowing, but the weight in his chest told him that whatever was waiting for him beyond this door wasn't going to be okay. Still, he couldn't leave. With a slow, shaky breath, he pulled out the spare key BOKUTO had given him years ago, back when things were different, when their friendship was unshakable, when BOKUTO trusted him with everything. Kenma swallowed against a lump in his throat and slid the key into the lock. The door clicked open, and he stepped inside. The apartment was cold, dark, and then he saw him. BOKUTO sat on the couch, hunched forward, his elbows on his knees, his hands limp between his legs. His head was bowed, his silver hair disheveled, blood still dried along the side of his face. He hadn't changed. His clothes were still torn from the fight, his knuckles raw and bruised. His phone lay face down on the floor beside him. The screen cracked, like he had thrown it at some point. But the worst part wasn't the injuries, it was the emptiness. BOKUTO wasn't crying. He wasn't shaking with rage or screaming like he used to when things got too much. He was just sitting there, completely still, completely silent, like there was nothing left inside of him. Kenma felt something crack in his. BOKUTO, he said, his voice quiet. BOKUTO didn't move, didn't react. Kenma took a hesitant step forward, guilt twisting deep in his stomach. His throat was dry. He had played this conversation in his head on the way here, but now, standing in front of him, he didn't know where to start. He did the only thing he could. I'm sorry. His voice wavered slightly, but he meant it. God, he meant it. BOKUTO finally stirred. Slowly, his fingers twitched, his shoulders rising and falling with a deep breath. Then, finally, he lifted his head. His eyes met Kenma's. Kenma wished they hadn't, because BOKUTO's eyes, his usually bright, golden eyes, were dull, lifeless. There was nothing behind them except exhaustion, pain, and something Kenma didn't even have a name for. Why? BOKUTO's voice was hoarse, like he had been screaming or crying or both. Kenma's stomach dropped. BOKUTO swallowed, his jaw tightening as he looked at him, really looked at him. His fingers clenched slightly, his knuckles still smeared with dried blood. Tell me the truth, BOKUTO whispered, his voice barely above a breath. Tell me everything. Kenma hesitated, but he owed him that much. He took a shaky breath, moving to the couch, but he couldn't bring himself to sit next to him. Instead, he sat on the floor in front of him, like they used to when they were kids, except nothing was the same anymore. It started a few months ago, Kenma admitted, his fingers curling into the fabric of his hoodie. Kyoru and AKAASHI, they were already fucking around with each other and I was a part of it. BOKUTO inhaled sharply, but he said nothing. Kenma continued, forcing the words out before he lost the courage. I don't know when exactly. I think it started slow. Kyoru told me one night that he and AKAASHI had kissed, and Kenma hesitated, his nails digging into his palms. I didn't stop it. I didn't even say anything. I just let it happen. BOKUTO's breath hitched. Kenma didn't look at him. He couldn't. It got worse, he said, voice tightening. They kept seeing each other behind your back. I knew about it, but I didn't tell you. I should have, but Kenma exhaled sharply. I was a coward. I didn't want to get involved, so I pretended like it wasn't happening. Silence stretched between them. Then BOKUTO spoke, his voice lower, rougher. And you? Kenma's stomach twisted violently. He squeezed his eyes shut. His throat closed up, but he forced himself to say it. I started seeing Kyoru and AKAASHI too. BOKUTO let out a slow, shaky breath. Kenma's chest ached. I didn't mean for it to happen, Kenma said, his voice almost pleading. I swear, BOKUTO, I never wanted to hurt you. BOKUTO let out a bitter, hollow laugh. Kenma's heart clenched. Did you love him? BOKUTO whispered. His voice was raw, like the words hurt to say. Or were you just bored? Kenma hesitated, and in that hesitation, BOKUTO had his answer. BOKUTO exhaled sharply, his head tilting back against the couch, his eyes squeezing shut, his fingers twitched in his lap, his body tense, like he was trying to hold himself together. Kenma swallowed. I'm sorry, he whispered again. BOKUTO laughed again, but this time, it was broken. You're sorry, he echoed, his voice distant, his fingers curled into his palms, his knuckles going wide. Sorry, Kenma flinched. BOKUTO inhaled, his breath shaky. You, Kyoru, AKAASHI, you all made the choice to do this, and now that it's over, you're just Sorry. Kenma bit the inside of his cheek. BOKUTO lifted his head again, and this time, there was something in his eyes. Something sharp. Something painful. You could have told me, BOKUTO whispered, at any point. But you let me sit there, happy, stupid. He let out a bitter chuckle, running a hand over his face. You let me keep telling you how much I loved him, how much I fucking trusted Kyoru, and the whole time, you knew. Kenma swallowed against the lump in his throat. Yeah, but we did tell you. Every time we did you would ignore it, he admitted, voice barely above a whisper. BOKUTO stared at him for a long moment. His shoulders were tense, his breathing uneven, his eyes swimming with something too heavy to name. Then, finally, get out. Kenma's breath hitched. BOKUTO, get out. The finality in his tone left no room for argument. Kenma hesitated for half a second, his fingers trembling, but what was there left to say? Nothing. So, slowly, painfully, he pushed himself to his feet. He turned toward the door, and with one last glance at his best friend, his former best friend, Kenma walked out. This time, he knew, BOKUTO wasn't going to come back.